Thank you so much. I feel like we're old friends, but this is my very first summit, and I just thank you so much for the warm welcome to all of the ZERO staff. We're all floating around here, and it's just been so wonderful to finally meet all of you in the flesh, and we are more than just the little faces and the emails we send out, but we just couldn't be more happy to be together after 3 long years of separation. But if you haven't had the chance to meet me, I'm so happy to meet you. My name is Shelby Moneer. I'm ZERO's Vice President of Patient Programs and Education. Several of the programs and education emails that you receive are from me, and I am the one who bothers you on various things here and there. So now you finally get to meet me, and I, again, just couldn't be more thrilled to meet you. But we're so excited to be here, like I said, after 3 long years. The last time we were together was March of 2020, minutes actually before the pandemic really shut down the world. But we just want to thank our amazing premier sponsor, Pfizer Oncology. Pfizer, can you give us all a wave? I know you have several teammates here. Thank you. Pfizer Oncology, such a wonderful partner. We also want to send a huge thank you to our caregiver sponsor, Bear. Where's my Bear, folks? There we are. Thank you, guys. We have an amazing caregiver guide. I'm going to do a little plug. We had a lot of hard work on our caregiver guide and some caregivers in the audience who helped us write that caregiver guide, and we have those available here at the summit. So more on that later. And I also want to send a huge thank you to all of our platinum sponsors, AstraZeneca, Janssen Oncology, Myovant Sciences, and Sanofi, as well as our gold sponsors, American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, or ACSCAN, Astellas Oncology, Blue Earth Diagnostics, Boston Scientific, Daiichi Sankyo, Dendreon, Foundation Medicine, Lantheus, and the Promise Registry. And we just really could not put on this event without all of those amazing sponsors. Please be sure to visit their tables outside. So we'll get started. I know I'm going through some of these more housekeeping items, so I appreciate your attention. We're getting ready to get really started with a lot of fun talks and a lot of the fun action. So if you haven't done it yet, be sure to download the ZERO Summit app. This can be on your mobile device or on your computer. This will give you access to all of our summit content as well as our virtual talks. There are some virtual support groups happening as well. But visit the app, interact with the folks who are listening virtually. We can all wave to those attendees as well. But a really great way to stay connected to all of the attendees while you're at the summit. Just a little reminder, some additional housekeeping items. Of course, masks are optional. You know that. Thank you all for taking the time to verify your vaccination status. I know that this is something we're hoping that we can be finished with, but we really appreciate your flexibility and willingness to be here throughout the pandemic. But just one more reminder, if you are feeling ill, please go to your room. We have a phone number you can text. It's 703. I don't know if it was behind me, sorry, 703-872-9387. You can also find me, you can find my colleague Allie, find a ZERO staff member, get to your room, and then we will make sure, if you would like, we can bring you a COVID test. So we have some protocols in place for you if you're starting to feel ill, so just make sure that you let us know right away. All right, we're gonna kick things off with a few words from our premier sponsor, Pfizer Oncology. We'll then follow that by ZERO's Board of Directors Chairman, Tom Bognanno. And then we are going to hear from prostate cancer survivor James Williams, Jr. But that's not all. We also have a big announcement that you'll hear from another ZERO staff in just a few moments. But without further ado, please welcome to the stage Marianne Gandee from our premier sponsor, Pfizer Oncology.
So I'm Marianne Gandee. I have the privilege of leading Pfizer Oncology's Patient Solutions and Alliances team. And essentially that is our advocacy efforts, our efforts to address access for cancer patients, and all of our around the patient solutions. Pfizer's committed to prostate cancer research. We are committed to patient centricity, and we are committed to partnership. So I'd be remiss if I did not thank our friends at ZERO for the strong partnership over time. But more importantly, to thank them for hosting this premier Advocacy Summit. It's a touch point for all of us to interact, share ideas, and to advocate together. ZERO provides so many critical resources to patients, to prostate cancer patients, and last night's Bold for Blue event was poignant to me in how many helpers are here in this room today. And it was also significant to me as a reminder of how much more we have to do for cancer patients. So I hope you don't mind. I'd like to share a recent revelation I had in watching a film. It was not a chick flick, although I am a huge Diane Keaton fan. It was actually the film 1917. This movie was breathtaking in its depiction of one of our first industrial wars, World War I. In World War I, over the course of 4 years, 20 million lives were lost around the globe. In comparison, according to Our World in Data, in 2019, we lost 10 million lives around the world to cancer. At this rate, cancer is taking twice the amount of lives as the First World War. And we all know here in the room that prostate cancer is the 5th leading cause of cancer death for men worldwide. Our earliest great thinkers thought deeply about the horrors of war, and nearly every great philosopher of the 20th century has contemplated the consequences of war on an industrial scale. As advocates, we need to think beyond the pragmatics and drive awareness that cancer is not only horrific in the individual experience of the disease, but that it is also one of the most pressing moral crusades of our time, and prostate cancer is but one of the many fronts. As an advocate, our core mission is to make sure the issue, cancer and prostate cancer, takes its rightful place in the collective consciousness of what's wrong in the world. And it's so important that we're here today at this summit. So thank you, ZERO. Thank you to all of the helpers in the room, to the advocates. I am honored and so grateful to work alongside you, and I'm honored to be able to welcome you to the 2023 ZERO Advocacy Summit today. Thank you so much.
Welcome to the most impactful event in the movement to zero out prostate cancer.
It's just incredibly powerful.
I'm happy to be here in memory of my dad.
The next 2 days are all about support.
My wife always says, I love to come here because I feel like I'm back with family.
Education.
People are really working. Good people are really working to try and beat this.
And advocacy.
Until my dying breath, or until we beat prostate cancer, I'm going to keep at this.
Welcome to the 2023 ZERO Prostate Cancer Summit.
Well, we're off and running this morning. As the voice of God just informed you, I am Manson, the Vice President of Government Relations and Advocacy. Many of you know me, at least from here up. And for those who don't but are joining us on the Hill tomorrow, you're going to actually maybe wish you didn't know me by the end of the day tomorrow. But I'm sorry. I'm here. I'm so glad you're here. And those past summits, they look great, right? I mean, you can really see the love in the eyes of the people in those pictures. And I don't know about you, this is actually my first ZERO Summit in person. Who else here is a first-timer in person? Wow, okay. All right. I want you all to put those hands back up, okay? And for the people whose hands are down, I have a job for you, all right? Look around, these are the folks. They're first-timers, they're new to our community, and I want each of you personally to make sure that they feel the love, right? Welcome them into the ZERO family so well that they can't imagine life without us, right? And that they come back next year. I'm sure everybody already started that task, right? I know that Susie is a one-woman welcome wagon, and she's not alone, right? We've got a fantastic group of ambassadors, and I would be remiss if I tried to name them because I'd miss one and it would be terrible. How many people attended the Bold for Blue Awards last night? It was amazing, right? I mean, it was just this incredible celebration of the passion and dedication of men, women, families, companies, all of whom have made an impact in the fight against prostate cancer. Kicking off our summit with the Bold for Blue Awards always feels right? It spotlights so much of what our champions and our advocates are doing all year long. I mean, I know that many of the folks in the room today were celebrated last night, right? We saw them on stage, we saw them on the screen. And for the newbies, I expect to see many of you on that stage next year, right? Because this is just the beginning, right? You're at the summit today. And at the summit, we build leaders. Leaders who are raising awareness and support for research dollars. Leaders who build a community that supports one another. Leaders who ensure that no one has to walk through prostate cancer alone. Because together, we'll beat this disease. Speaking of being together, we are missing one notable presence, our President and CEO, Jamie Burse. For those who didn't hear, he was called away for a family emergency. We are hopeful that things are on the upswing, but we miss him deeply, and we know that he's with us certainly in spirit, on his part, and in all of our hearts. So we are sorry not to have Jamie here today. We do have a full lineup of educational sessions, support group breakouts, and most importantly for me, advocacy training for those of you heading to Capitol Hill tomorrow. Speaking of advocacy, for the folks joining us virtually, or if you're staying here on Tuesday for education sessions, please take out your cell phones. It's a great time to do it. You're not distracted. It's totally appropriate. We're going to text to 52886, and you're going to text Summit 23. It's going to send you a link that will allow you to send messages to your members of Congress in support of our policy priorities. That is a wonderful, wonderful way to multiply the impact of the almost 150 people going to Capitol Hill tomorrow. So I'll give you the 30 seconds it takes to get that process started. It's fine to ignore me for a minute. Oh, I'd love to say it again. 52886, and you want to text Summit 23. All right, advocacy commercial break over. I mentioned the educational sessions. You're going to get a lot of those. In fact, there are even a few virtual-only sessions that you can watch during breaks or your other free time, maybe later this week on your flight home, whatever works for you. There are support groups you can join, both in person and virtually, and you can talk to people who are going through the same thing you are. Whether you're a patient, a caregiver, you have advanced disease, or you're on active surveillance, we've got something for everyone. I hope everyone walks away from here having learned at least one new thing, whether from an educational session, a support group, or just your new best friend, something that helps you in your cancer journey or that helps you help someone else. We have a vast and vibrant community of ZERO champions. Our champions show up for the community in different ways. Some of you might have wondered about that table full of walnuts over there. No? Weird to anyone? Our champions, Leonard and Betty Zasowski, created those as a tribute to those impacted by the disease and a way of raising awareness for prostate cancer. You might know the healthy prostate's about the size of a walnut, so please help yourself. Grab a walnut. We'll also be taking those with us tomorrow to Capitol Hill to share the walnut knowledge, I guess, for lack of a better word. I'd like to introduce another champion, Tony Minter. Tony was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2012 when he was 50 years old. During his cancer journey, it was apparent to him that African American men suffer from prostate cancer in greater numbers, and that part of it was likely due to access to care and resources, as well as a lack of awareness in the community. Tony sought to change that. He's now a passionate ZERO advocate who's been a staple at the summit in years past. And he's always willing to share his story with other attendees. He's not here in person, but this is Tony's story.
I walk in, I'm sitting there, she's at her desk. She says, I got good news and bad news. She said, the bad news is you have cancer.
Let us pray. Our God and our Father, we're so thankful and grateful.
And she said, the good news is there's a good chance that we caught it early. And I thought about it, and I said, oh, okay. well, this is good. This is good. And then I got that look. She's like, good. It's like, yeah, now I get to talk about what I am experiencing. Hopefully, I can help some people. For me, I decided on the course of the treatment for prostate cancer. And 9 years later, the prostate cancer is still in remission. That's one of those things where you have to advocate for yourself. There are a lot of men out there that don't even know what a prostate is. I haven't been in the medical field, in the military. I really understand a lot of medical terminology and things that relate to the body. I got to thinking, how many men would be okay doing research and trying to figure out all of the doctor speak? And so I dove in, I tried to learn as much as I could and put myself in a position to be available to talk to men. I started a support group that was for newly diagnosed. Started making a trip to Washington, D.C. to the ZERO Summit. Had I not been going to those summits and had the ability to talk to someone about that, I probably still would have been suffering in silence.
Look at me and smile. You know what makes you happy, don't it?
It's a difficult fight to fight, and if it was not for my family, it would be probably easy for me to give up. My wife showed me what it meant when it says for better or for worse. And there were times when I would say to her, I can't believe you're still here.
So now we're getting to the real deal.
Even though people call you a superwoman, you still need a support system. And I remember in the hospital one day, I'm in the cafeteria crying by myself because I didn't know what was gonna happen. I'm sorry. I'm just glad he's here. And so I needed to do what I could to make sure that he stayed here.
I know that none of us come to stay forever, and I want to make sure that I've done everything that I can do as it relates to prostate cancer. Thus, I aspire to inspire before I expire. That's why I'm here. That's my purpose.
Tony hinted at this, but it was a person he met at the ZERO Summit who altered the course of his care, right? Who helped him to push and to ask the questions he needed to get the care he needed. Daryl Wilson is a prostate cancer patient who's embraced our mission to zero out prostate cancer with every fiber of his being. We recently featured Daryl in one of our awareness campaigns, and he told us a few things that I think you need to hear. This is Daryl and his wife, Gloria, and a little insight into their life together.
My name is Daryl Wilson, and I'm a husband, father, and grandfather, and I have advanced prostate cancer. There are treatments now that when I was diagnosed in 2009 weren't even available. I'm using them, and they're prolonging my life, they're improving my quality of life, and they weren't available then, and there's more in the pipe.
If we continue to have research, then there'll be a new method to prevent it, a new method to medicate it, maybe eventually eliminate it.
One of the therapies it isn't approved yet, but it's down in the process of, phase 1 or trial 1, 2, 3 kind of process to becoming approved. I worked on 3 years ago with the PCRP program through the Department of Defense, and I'm excited, and as soon as it's appropriate for me, I'll use it. Research is what's keeping me alive, and that's what gives me hope.
Those are powerful words. Research is what's keeping me alive, and that's what's giving me hope. I'm honored that Daryl is here with us this morning. I'm going to ask him to stand up. And Daryl, thank you for being here and for everything you do. Daryl's told that story before. He used his prostate cancer experience to help others by being a reviewer for the Prostate Cancer Research Program, which you'll hear more about later today. And he's been an advocate virtually the last 2 years, but he's going with our folks to Capitol Hill tomorrow. Many of you are going with Daryl. And I want to thank you on behalf of the entire prostate cancer community. Policy and advocacy are so important. They're the tools that shape the system in which each one of you and the ones who come after you receive care. And we have the opportunity to shape that experience, to make sure that no one misses out on a potentially life-saving prostate cancer screening because of cost, to make sure that new treatments and tools are available to treat prostate cancer because we've invested in research, and to eliminate the disparities that plague prostate cancer outcomes. Our advocates aren't going to the Hill because it's going to change the course of their prostate cancer experience. It's because it'll change someone else's. They're getting all of us, loved ones and strangers alike, one step closer to Generation Zero. So they're our heroes, and why don't we give them a quick round of applause? If you aren't an advocate right now and that hasn't convinced you that you want to be in the future, well, just assume it has. We have lots of opportunities for you to join us, starting by texting Summit 23 to 52886. We offer opportunities throughout the year, and you can join us next year, February 25th to 27th, for the 2024 ZERO Prostate Cancer Summit. I think many of our advocates would agree that advocating might not change your prostate cancer care right now, but telling your story to help others can change your life. So please, make the most of your time here today and tomorrow. And I hope that whether you've been a Zero champion for years, we've got several of those, or if this is your first time with us, this is the beginning of an even deeper engagement with the Zero family and the beginning of an empowering chapter in your prostate cancer journey. Speaking of our champions, I'd like to welcome the chairman of Zero's board of directors, Mr. Tom Bognanno, to the stage.
See these books? There's going to be a quiz. You didn't think you were going to get out of here on the easy side of things, but on behalf of the board of directors, I want to welcome you. More than that, on behalf of the board of directors, I want to thank you. It's a privilege to serve on your board, and I think there are some other fellow board members in the audience today, so if you don't mind, those of you that are, could you stand up and wave so the folks can see you? They are champions too, and so if you get a chance and you have questions about how we operate, grab one of them and be glad to share with you. I think, as Shelby has already said, it is a pleasure to see so many people back in the room together. I think that's a theme we're going to be saying over the next few days. And again, whether this is your first time, whether you're a veteran, whether you're watching us virtually, welcome and thank you. Now, they asked me to speak, not too long, but they said, I've tried to think in the last few weeks, well, what am I going to say, knowing some of the stories that have been told in past summits and some of those you've already heard. What would be relevant and really something I could convey to you about our mission, about why we're here? So I thought about it. It was actually an episode that happened a couple weeks ago, and it doesn't have anything to do with the board, and it's only indirectly with prostate cancer. It had to do with retirement. You see, my wife and I are now approaching, within the next few months, my imminent retirement after 47 years in the nonprofit leadership arena. And so, like a lot of you that maybe have approached that or there already or will be approaching it, Sue and I began to confront one of the greatest fears people face when they reach those golden years. It's not Medicare, it wasn't health care costs, those are bad. It wasn't required minimum distributions. I believe the technical term, the mental term is decluttering. Yes, that's it. So we begun to have those discussions of what are we going to do with the decades worth of children's clothes and their trophies and their pictures and their photos. And in my case, being a very avid reader, what am I going to do with the hundreds of books that I've collected over the years and that I've never opened up again? So that's what it had to do today. So a few weeks ago, as I was up in one of those spare bedrooms, spare being the operative word, in our home right across the river in Virginia, I was looking at some piles of books my wife had put out, kind of segmented so we could give them away. And I came over a group of books like this, like the Prostate Cancer Treatment Book and Dr. Patrick Walsh's Guide to Surviving Prostate Cancer. And I don't know if it was any good, but 100 questions and answers about prostate cancer. And I saw those books and I said, wow, I bought those years ago. What am I going to do with them? So that's the point of what I think I would talk to you about, because when I was first diagnosed with prostate cancer well over a decade ago, I had purchased those books, like a lot of you did, because my wife and I were trying to try to get our heads around a discussion we had had with my urologist at that time, just a few weeks earlier. Now, for all of you, many of you, it's a common situation. You know what I'm going to say. You have the rising PSA, you go in for the biopsy, you get the biopsy, the doctor says, come down, both of you, no apprehension, it's just the way I'd like to do it. Love to have both of you in the office, not just you. Sitting there, I wasn't really worried about it. I was in my mid-50s, I was healthy, full-time career. Nobody in my family had prostate cancer, and for all I knew, I think you had to be 110, I think is when you got prostate cancer, but it wasn't going to be me. That is until the doctor walked around the office, and some of you have heard this story many times, and before he sat down, put his hands on the desk, looked at me and said, man, you've got a lot of cancer in there. True story. And from that moment on, my life changed like a lot of yours. There was a stopwatch that went off. And things have never been quite the same. But like a lot of you, that journey goes on. So you have the surgery, and after the surgery, after they've removed everything there and everything that was around the prostate, I don't know, but they had to take everything. I wasn't worried then. The cancer was gone. I had to deal with side effects. Some of them I could deal with, and like a lot of the men in this room and women who know that, some of them were not so pleasant, some of them were life-altering. But I'd gotten rid of the cancer. That was the important thing to me. Well, that was true for about 3 years. And then you guys know the rest of the story when the PSA numbers begin to rise again and again and again. And you talk about doubling time, and you talk about tripling time, and then you're taking radiation. So after those 40 treatments, lovely. I was so happy when they were done. Again, I reached a point in my life and I said, I got through it. My cancer was done. But again, unfortunately, a story all too often, it wasn't. And then about 3 years, because about 3 years ago, matter of fact, right before this summit, those numbers began going up again. And this time there was a little more fear, a little more apprehension, a little more anger, and a little more confusion, because my life was not turning out the way that I had thought, and this cancer wasn't behaving the way that I thought it would. But the point of all of this, the whole story was, between that first episode with cancer years ago, and even with the second one when it came back, between those two and the third visit, something had changed. I met ZERO during that period. And again, my life changed for the better. You see, these books are great. I have nothing against them. And everything we look on the internet, they're great. But I was struggling up until the point when I met ZERO, because this book could never give me what you give me and what you give other men and other families. It's flesh and blood. It's compassion. It's caring. It's passion. And that makes all the difference to a cancer patient, really any kind of patient. So I applaud you. You are my heroes, because I know for a fact that's what made a difference. Meeting ZERO, meeting the just the dedicated, the people that go on the hill, those of you that are mentors, those of you that are support group leaders, those of you that are champions, those of you that are just donors and help out, those of you that are caregivers like my wife. That's what this summit is all about. So if you'll forgive my kind of odd way of getting into it, I'm glad I saw this pile of books and many others. And by the way, I'm going to leave them on a back table because I'm not taking them home. Decluttering, you want some classic books, here they are. A few coffee stains, but that's okay. Because I don't need them, because I have you. There are medical professionals in this room. Yeah. So my message before I introduce our speaker is this. The reason I'm on the board, the reason why many of are on the board, the reason why you're here, the reason why you're champions is because every day I go back and I said, I wish I had met ZERO the very day that I was diagnosed. There would have been so much more peace and assurance and a lot less anguish and stress within our marriage, within our family. There would have been so much less fear. Because when I first was diagnosed, all I could think about was death. When I met ZERO, I think of life and people who are dedicated to life and want to extend that life. So my goal in being here and your goal in this summit is all of us making that promise. There should never be another man, another caregiver, another love, another spouse who has to face prostate cancer without this wonderful family and community. You matter to so many. And now we just have to take that message and get it out and make sure that everyone who is diagnosed has it. I have to say, I'm going to deviate. It'll be an extra minute. Sitting at the table this morning, I won't embarrass her, but just sitting to all the stories we tell. And so this lovely young woman talking to me about their prostate cancer experience. Didn't know ZERO either. And in that short period of time when her husband lost his battle with cancer, my heart went out to her and I kept thinking, they went through that without you. That's sad, but then the joy of it is she's here today. She was brought here today by an advocate, and now she's part of a community. And even though that grief and that sadness is there, she's here with you. And that means we have a common mission, a common goal. Okay, no test. I just want to say you're here today because you're going to focus on knowledge and information, but you're also here to encourage each other, commit to one another, because we believe there is no number acceptable north of ZERO. And none of us want to give any more ground to cancer. You are the people that truly, it's not a tagline. We are going to have a generation very soon for my sons and my grandsons where there will be no more numbers, no more diagnosis, there will be no more prostate cancer because of what you're doing here. And now the fun part. My pleasure to introduce our mission speaker, someone who knows a thing or two about prostate cancer himself, and turning that pain that I talked about into purpose. And that's our mission speaker. A native Washingtonian, James M. Williams, Jr., is a two-time prostate cancer survivor turned passionate warrior in the fight against cancer. After years on Capitol Hill and working in the government relations field, James joined the American Cancer Society's Cancer Action Network, and as the Director of Federal Affairs for Cancer, Prevention, Early Detection, and Screening. Now, this survivor turned his personal experience, his story, into a career advocating to ensure that others, like us, can enjoy the same kind of future that he has, one that's filled with service and love and family. So, ZERO, please welcome to the stage our mission speaker, James M. Williams, Jr.